Hello everybody, I'm Anna Hayes. I'm a singer, songwriter and visual artist, and in this series I'm documenting the process of creating my own tarot deck, one card at a time, while also diving into the traditional meaning of every card and how to interpret them in a reading. As I explained in my introductory video, after studying The Way of Tarot by Alejandro Jodorowsky, in which he reconstructs the original Marseille deck, I decided to create my own version that remains as faithful as possible to the tradition while incorporating my personal style. In fact, most modern decks I've encountered are either based on the Rider-Waite system or completely freestyled, which makes it harder for me to read them in a detailed image-based way. If you're interested in this discussion, you can watch my first video on the matter, which I will link in the description. But for now, let's talk about our star today, which is not the star, but the Empress. Sorry, this was confusing. The Empress was the first card I randomly picked when deciding where to start, though in the major arcana she holds the number 3. And 3 is significant, as every other number is, considering the importance of numerology in the original deck. 3 is the explosion of energy that follows the duality of 2. The High Priestess, the number 2, is quiet gestation. The Empress instead is creative eruption. In Jodorowsky's system, 3 represents the synthesis of opposites, the birth of movement. It's the number of expansion, of creation, and the first steps into the unknown. The Empress is the first realization of power, but she hasn't yet mastered it. She is potent but inexperienced. She is often misunderstood. Many depictions of her make her seem like a composed, mature woman, a ruler who has everything under control. But that couldn't be further from her original essence. The Empress is raw, youthful, and still discovering her strength. In Jodorowsky's interpretation, she's a precocious, self-assured girl, green-eyed and untamed. Brimming with creative force, she's only just realizing she wills. If I had to make a cinematic parallel, which I absolutely did when imagining how to draw her, I would totally see her as Bella Baxter from Poor Things. When designing my version of her, I tried to pay close attention to Jodorowsky's interpretations of her symbols, translating them into my own artistic language. For every element in the Tarot of Marseille has a meaning, and nothing is ever accidental, not even what looks like stains. Like all the other cards, her symbology waves into the larger narrative of the deck, requiring us to compare her to the other cards to fully understand her. Mostly she is the direct counterpart of the High Priestess, as I mentioned before. The Empress is outwardly expressive, where the High Priestess is secretive. But despite their contrasts, as often happens in this deck, they are two different sides of the same coin. This is also evident in the crescent moon motif, which in the Empress case is on her lap. And it's a subtle echo of the feminine receptivity, fully embodied by the High Priestess. Needless to say, the use of color into the Marseille deck is deliberate. The High Priestess wears a blue dress under a red cape, hidden knowledge beneath structured authority. The Empress, on the other hand, wears red, the color of the intuitive real. She sits on a throne, obvious symbol of sovereignty, but she's not the rigid authority of the Emperor, her other direct counterpart. Unlike the structured environment of his domain, the Empress is surrounded by nature, which flourishes at her feet, a visual manifestation of her role as the fertile force of creation. One of her most striking and often overlooked symbols is the white snake she tames at her feet, or that's Jodorowsky's interpretation of the elongated, pale shape on the pavement, which again is often excluded from many representations. This represents her sexual power, a primal force she commands with instinct rather than experience. Another crucial detail is the leaf growing beneath her hand, a perpetual spring, as Jodorowsky says, a symbol of an unstoppable organic growth. She is abundance incarnate. But unlike the Emperor, who rules over structure and civilization, her dominion is wild, uncontained, and teeming with potential. To her left, we find what Jodorowsky identifies as a baptismal font, a sacred vessel marking the moment of her own birth. This is a crucial detail. The Empress is new to her power, freshly arrived into the realm of action, untouched by hesitation or doubt. She doesn't question her strength, because she's never experienced a world in which she was powerless. In the original card, she holds a shield with an eagle, again mirroring the Emperor. Again, while he wields it as a sign of dominion, hers is not a tool of control, but of self-definition. In my version, I chose to reinterpret this symbol. Instead of with a shield, the Empress protects herself with her own bare hand. This subtle shift in symbolism highlights her power not as something wielded over others, but as something inherently woven into her being. While my design remains faithful to the Marseille core structure, I'm hiding a personal touch in every card like an Easter egg. For each card I study and then create, I try to extrapolate a sentence, an intention that I feel like could represent its core essence, and even be a sort of suggestion, advice, or oracle or mantra when the card comes out in a reading. Then, using the consonant of this phrase, I craft a sigil and weave it into the artwork. For me, the Empress says, "Nothing resists me." But how do you read this card? Generally, when she comes out in a reading, the Empress signifies an unstoppable creative force. She's expansion, fertility, whether literal or metaphorical, and the call to embrace one's own generative power. She can be the answer to stagnation, the green light you need to move forward. However, as we said before, her energy is not yet defined. It's bold, impulsive, at times reckless. She does represent the joy of creation, but not the wisdom of mastery. She can also indicate sensuality, desire, and self-expression, urging you to step into your own allure without hesitation. As she holds of immense potential, she also warns of inexperience. Her power is raw and instinctual, and without awareness it can become chaotic or indulgent or naive. So when in a negative position, her energy may manifest as creative blockages, insecurity, or inability to channel one's power effectively. It could also suggest overindulgence, hedonism, or an overwhelming force that has yet to find direction. I hope you enjoyed this deep dive into the meanings of the Empress and my artistic interpretation of her. Let me know what you think in the comments below, if you did see her or read her in a different way before. And if you would like to support me, please like, share and subscribe so that I can keep on working on my art and make these videos. Good night, have very strange dreams.